Hey everybody, remember yesterday I told you we swapped facilities with the gathering place. It happens to be another church that's also gone out of business. As I told you, we're a miracle that we ever made it this far. When we got into Wilson Elementary School, that's where we started doing table time. We brought in round tables. We sat around round tables. That was the birthing. That was the beginning of all of our small group ministry that we have now. We have over a couple hundred people in like 20 different small groups that meet all over the place. And that started way back in 1998 around the table time era of our church. Well, as we were meeting, we get this decree. Two things happen. Churches were not allowed to meet in Seminole County schools for more than a year anymore. Now, we'd been there like 3 to 6 months. So then they gave us, okay, you're going to have all the way to the end of 1999, and then you have to be out. So we started looking for some land. Remember I told you about the chest of Joash last Sunday and how everybody sacrificially gave. But when we started that chest of Joash, that giving campaign for our church went from like 120 people down to like 40 people. People are like, how did you do that? And I always tell people very skillfully. I tell pastors when they're like, we don't have enough room, we're gonna have to build. I said, well, just start a building campaign. Half your people will run away. Like, what do you mean? Like, oh yeah, as soon as you start talking about raising money, people are like, that church just wants money. They're gone. Oh, we don't need a building anymore. All we needed was a building campaign. So I always tell people every year about this time, I say, so if we ever do that again, don't you bolt. And let me just tell you, God has spoken clearly to me. We're praying for a new building, and we're gonna have to raise the money for a new building. So hopefully nobody bolts. We all trust God, and He'll provide, and it'll be the next round of Stones of Remembrance stories for the next 20 years that we'll be telling, and you get to live through these this time. So we're in Wilson Elementary School. We've shrunk down a little bit. It's now January of '99. We've bought the land. We're now dwindled down, and we started experiencing God, the course Experience of God in January of '99. We started praying for 4 families that God would send to our church. By Easter, we were praying specifically for 4 families. And then I get this phone call. And I said, hey, Jerry, my name's Bill. You went to school with my wife. You don't really know me, but the church that we're in is going out of business. Remember I told you churches go out of business first? Baptist of Lake Mary was where they're from. And their pastor that was pastoring them was going to leave the pastorate and go back into counseling. He wasn't going like that he needed counseling. He was a counselor and was going to go do counseling, which was a good thing. But they needed it. They needed home. And I said, so I said to him on the phone, how many families do you have? He's like, what do you mean? He said, well, how do you? I said, we're praying for 4 families, and he's like, well, yeah, me and my wife and our kids and her sister and their kids and her other sister and their kids and her parents. That's 4 families. Plus we probably have another 8 families that might come with us. And I'm like, all right. So we meet for lunch at Bubbaloo's over on Lee Road. And Bill Twilliger says to me, he says, listen, Jerry, really all we're looking for is a pastor who won't quit on us. And I said, buddy, I'm your guy. There's already 10 times I should already quit. I've told you some of those stories. And they had been a part of a church that had gone out of business, just like the Gathering Place, just like that church in Deltona, just like some of the other ones that we've seen this happen to, Celebration. When God brought First Lake Mary, so that next Sunday was a friend day. And we were all setting out chairs because we set up and Don Williams was one of our trustees at the time. He's with the Lord now too. He says to me, he says, Pastor, how many chairs should we put out? And we had 43 people the week before, 43. And I said, well, Don, let's set out 100 chairs. And his eyes were like, what? He thought I was going to say 60. And I said, I didn't tell him that I had this conversation because I didn't know for sure if they would show up. I said, I think God's going to have some of his friends there. And sure enough, we went from 43 to 96 in 1 week. And it was like God put 2 halves of the puzzle together. And this group that came in, some of them are still here. Gene Brown's still here. The Bearings are still here. Glenn Fleming, who's up with the Lord, he was part of that group. So they were like the other half. And they came in and kind of caught their breath, and they were excited because we just bought land and we had building plans. And oh my goodness, and they jumped all in and started saying, here, let me help with that. Can I help with this? Can we help with that? And God brought our church together and literally did kind of a miracle there. I hope you'll be with us tomorrow, because I want to tell you the story of what God did. The biggest miracle, other than the $1 million miracle, is going to be tomorrow morning when we talk on Sunday. God bless you. I love you. I hope you have a great day today.